Why do certain bustling corners of America, brimming with potential and opportunity, also conceal areas of extreme despair that spark fear? The issue of homelessness in America extends beyond the loss of housing. It is a tangled web of poverty addiction and systemic neglect. In this video, we explore the 10 most dangerous locations where the homeless endure unimaginable conditions exacerbated by crime indifference and the horrific spread of fentanyl. These often ignored areas urgently need our focus to truly grasp the extent of this crisis and the immediate necessity for change. Overview of homelessness in America. Homelessness in America exposes the profound fractures within our society's core. Each night, approximately 580,000 individuals find themselves without a home, as reported by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development's latest data for 2023. This crisis is concentrated in major cities like Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York, which, despite their wealth, face a widening gap between the prosperous and the poor. Escalating rent prices, stagnant wages, and a severe lack of mental health services push many people to their breaking point. Why do these thriving cities teeming with opportunities fail to protect their own citizens?
It is. The rent is too high. It's even going up in even these rooming houses. And, people are using drugs to escape, and the drug use is making you come out here more. You don't pay your rent, you're not working enough, and that's part of, contributing to the problem.
What drives individuals to endure the brutal conditions of life on the streets? The causes are multifaceted. Rising housing costs prevent those who are already struggling from finding a place to live, while affordable housing options continue to disappear. Mental health challenges, often left untreated due to inadequate access to care, only worsen over time. Addiction, particularly to fentanyl, a drug ravaging entire communities, entraps many in a continuous cycle of dependency. These issues not only cause people to lose their homes, but also foster instability, transforming certain neighborhoods into areas of crime, squalor, and fear. How can a nation so rich in resources allow such widespread suffering to persist? The places we'll examine are not just dangerous for the people living there. They force us to confront our collective conscience. Tent cities, tarps, and hopelessness are not merely signs of personal hardship. They reflect a breakdown in the system. Crime thrives where hope has dissipated and unsanitary conditions amplify the anguish. These troubled areas from Skid Row to Kensington challenge us to look past the statistics. What does it say about us when we walk by these scenes every day? Yet solutions remain elusive. Homelessness in America is not simply a policy issue, it's a moral one, demanding that we address the inequalities that leave so many behind and ask how we can rebuild a system that truly serves everyone. Criteria for identifying the most dangerous locations. To identify the most hazardous homeless encampments in America, we focus on specific revealing factors that expose the true scope of this crisis. First, we examine the concentration of unhoused individuals. In cities like Los Angeles and Philadelphia, thousands of people crowd into temporary shelters with tents and tarps, lining sidewalks or vacant properties. These overcrowded areas leave individuals at high risk from the elements' illness and violence. Lack of sanitation, limited access to clean water, and constant exposure to harsh conditions make daily survival an ongoing struggle. How can such overrun, neglected areas exist in the heart of prosperous cities? Crime is another crucial factor. Elevated levels of violence, theft, and drug-related crimes create an environment of fear, affecting both the homeless and surrounding residents. Fentanyl, a lethal opioid. Driving overdose deaths across the country worsens these dangers, as we will examine further. Its prevalence in these encampments heightens risks, transforming already vulnerable areas into epicenters of despair. Why do these locations become hotspots for crime and addiction? And what does this reveal about our priorities? The wider societal impact also plays a role. These areas often make headlines or are featured in government reports underscoring their severity. They drain community resources, deter visitors, and undermine public safety. All symptoms of the systemic failures in addressing homelessness in America. By focusing on factors such as population density, living conditions, crime, and social consequences, we highlight areas where neglect is most apparent. These criteria not only pinpoint danger, but also expose the cracks in our social structure. What will it take for society to face these issues head-on and provide tangible solutions? Our exploration seeks to shed light on these struggling areas, pushing us to look past numbers and recognize the human toll of inaction. The impact of fentanyl on homeless communities. Fentanyl is wreaking havoc on America's homeless communities, transforming desperate lives into deadly battles. This synthetic opioid, which is 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine, claimed over 70,000 lives in 2021, according to the CDC, with the toll likely having increased since. Cheap and readily available fentanyl is an alluring yet lethal option for those on the streets where access to healthcare or addiction services seems out of reach. For the homeless, fentanyl isn't just a substance, it's a chain trapping them in a relentless cycle of despair. How can we stand by and watch as this poison tightens its grip on the most vulnerable? Why does fentanyl devastate these communities more than others? Its affordability and easy accessibility make it an appealing escape from the harshness of street life. In places like Kensington in Philadelphia or Skid Row in Los Angeles, open-air drug markets thrive with fentanyl, often laced into other drugs, significantly raising the risk of fatal overdoses.
Oh, that is a crazy feeling, and it's not a fun feeling at all. When you wake up, you get very sick, because it sucks all the drugs out of you, so you have nothing.
The results are tragic rising death tolls, drug-fueled violence, and crime that impacts everyone nearby. Used needles are abandoned on sidewalks, transforming these areas into health risks and breeding grounds for chaos. What does it say about us when we allow entire neighborhoods to become battlegrounds for addiction? Certain neighborhoods are bearing the brunt of this crisis. Kensington, tragically known as America's fentanyl capital, is filled with individuals suffering in conditions no one should endure. Skid Row sees fentanyl fueling overdoses and violent clashes, while San Francisco's Tenderloin is marred by open drug use that scares off residents and visitors. These locations, already devastated by homelessness, are pushed even deeper into hopelessness by fentanyl's spread. How can we turn our backs when these communities are sinking deeper into despair right before our eyes? Addressing this issue is not just about arresting drug dealers. The homeless need real support detox programs, safe injection sites, and mental health care. But these services are either scarce or mired in bureaucracy. Housing, healthcare, and addiction treatment must be integrated to break this vicious cycle. If we fail to act, these encampments will continue to deteriorate, pulling everyone down with them. Can we honestly call ourselves a compassionate society when people are silently dying on our streets, ignored and unsupported? The top 10 most dangerous homeless encampments. The homeless crisis in America is most visible in specific urban areas where desperation, neglect, and danger converge. These locations, marked by high concentrations of unhoused people, unbearable living conditions, and the widespread influence of fentanyl, reflect the nation's failure to address systemic inequalities. Here we explore the 10 most dangerous homeless encampments, each a microcosm of the broader societal breakdown. These places are more than just statistics. They are human tragedies urging us to reflect and take action. As we look at each, consider this. What does society do when its most vulnerable are left to survive in such perilous conditions? Skid Row, Los Angeles, California. Located in the heart of Los Angeles, Skid Row spans about 50 city blocks and is home to thousands of unhoused individuals. This sprawling encampment, one of the largest in the U.S., is a tangled web of tents, tarps, and makeshift shelters. Conditions here are grim, sidewalks are filled with trash, sanitation is nearly non-existent, and the air is thick with despair. Fentanyl has entrenched its grip on Skid Row, contributing to overdose deaths and violent conflicts tied to drug trafficking. Crime rates, including assault and theft, soar, creating an environment where safety is a rare luxury. Rising housing costs and limited shelter options in Los Angeles perpetuate this crisis despite inconsistent outreach efforts. The question remains, how can a city with so much wealth allow Skid Row to stand as a symbol of neglect? Tenderloin, San Francisco, California. The Tenderloin district in San Francisco, nestled among tech wealth, stands as a grim symbol of poverty. Hundreds of unhoused individuals line the sidewalks, living in tents surrounded by needles and waste. Fentanyl's prevalence fuels open-air drug markets, escalating violence and disorder. High crime rates, including muggings and assaults, create a dangerous atmosphere for everyone. The city's unaffordable housing market and limited shelter options exacerbate this crisis, while attempts at drug intervention and housing programs struggle to meet demand. Tenderloin's chaos highlights a failure to reconcile economic prosperity with social equity. Community efforts to address addiction and homelessness face resistance, underscoring the need for bold systemic solutions that can restore dignity and safety. Downtown Seattle, Washington. In downtown Seattle, particularly around Occidental Park, large encampments occupy parks and alleys. Thousands of unhoused individuals endure rain-soaked conditions with little access to food or hygiene. Fentanyl's spread has intensified overdoses and drug-related crime, casting a dark shadow over the area. Seattle's housing shortage, despite its progressive reputation, overwhelms local policies, leaving many vulnerable. Tiny home projects offer some hope, but fall far short of addressing the need. Public safety concerns clash with calls for compassion, creating a tense atmosphere. The persistence of these camps highlights the challenge of aligning humanitarian values with effective governance, urging a reevaluation of how cities can best protect their most vulnerable residents. Kensington, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Kensington, known as America's fentanyl capital, is a grim epicenter of addiction in North Philadelphia. Hundreds of unhoused individuals live in abandoned lots and under bridges surrounded by streets littered with syringes. Fentanyl's grip has fueled open drug markets and violent turf wars, making daily survival a dangerous struggle. Poverty and limited social services deepen the crisis, while harm reduction efforts struggle to keep up with the epidemic's scale. The neighborhood's squalor and peril reflect a failure to address the root causes of addiction. Community initiatives are hampered by funding shortages, leaving Kensington's residents stuck in a cycle of hopelessness. This dire situation demands urgent investment in housing and treatment to help break free from addiction and neglect. The Bowery, New York City, New York. In Lower Manhattan, the Bowery stands as a symbol of homelessness in America, despite partial gentrification. Unhoused individuals gather in parks and along sidewalks, especially at night, facing heightened risks. The rise of fentanyl has led to petty crime and health emergencies, worsening the area's challenges. New York's soaring rents and overwhelmed shelters push people to the streets where cold winters and human dangers prevail. Outreach programs and housing initiatives show some progress, but cannot meet the growing need. The Bowery's struggles reflect the city's inability to fully resolve its housing crisis. Renewed efforts are necessary to ensure safety and stability, reminding us that urban progress must include those left behind. Venice Beach, Los Angeles, California. Venice Beach, a popular tourist destination, hides a grim reality along its scenic boardwalk. Hundreds of unhoused individuals live in tents and rundown RVs overshadowed by nearby mansions. The surge of fentanyl has increased tensions with drug-related conflicts, sparking occasional violence. The mild weather attracts the unhoused, but poor sanitation and rising crime diminish the area's appeal. Limited shelter options and high living costs exacerbate the crisis, while cleanup efforts often displace people without solving the underlying issues. Venice's stark contrasts challenge the community to balance tourism with compassion. Sustainable housing and addiction support are critical to restoring safety and dignity to this iconic coastline. Downtown Portland, Oregon. Portland's Old Town Chinatown and nearby Washington Park are home to expansive encampments with hundreds living in tents amid urban decay. Fentanyl's spread has contributed to overdoses and crime, creating an unstable environment. The city's housing crisis and permissive camping policies have swelled visible homelessness, straining public resources. Sanitation problems and safety concerns are sparking community unrest, calling for stricter measures. Portland's struggles reflect the tension between progressive values and maintaining urban order. Initiatives like emergency shelters offer some hope, but they lack the scale needed to make a lasting impact. Addressing the crisis requires bold investments in housing and addiction treatment, ensuring that compassion translates into tangible solutions for the city's most vulnerable. South Bronx, New York City, New York. The South Bronx, New York's poorest borough, is home to unhoused individuals living in abandoned buildings and on freezing streets. Fentanyl's spread has worsened addiction and crime, adding to the area's already significant challenges. Harsh winters and a lack of shelters leave many vulnerable to danger. Chronic poverty and underfunded services perpetuate this cycle despite sporadic outreach efforts. The South Bronx's plight underscores how economic inequality drives homelessness in America. Community safety and health crises demand urgent action, yet solutions remain elusive. Investing in affordable housing and addiction support is essential to break the cycle and offer a path to stability for residents in one of the city's most challenged areas. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Albuquerque's parks and overpasses shelter hundreds of unhoused individuals in tents and makeshift camps. Fentanyl's rise has caused overdoses and violent attacks, including targeted assaults on the homeless. Limited shelter capacity and economic hardship fuel this crisis, leaving many without a safe place to go. Community efforts to provide services face chronic underfunding, exacerbating the dangerous conditions. Albuquerque's difficulties highlight how a lack of resources fuels urban despair. Addressing this issue requires prioritizing shelter expansion and addiction treatment to restore safety. The city's encampments are a stark reminder of the need to rethink local policies to ensure the most vulnerable aren't left to fend for themselves in such a harsh environment. Miami, Florida. Miami's downtown, particularly under its overpasses, hosts encampments where hundreds endure oppressive heat and filth. Fentanyl's presence drives drug-related crime, making the area unsafe for all. High living costs and limited shelters worsen the crisis, while cleanup efforts often scatter residents without providing solutions. Miami's situation highlights the clash between urban development and human need. Community initiatives face systemic barriers, leaving the unhoused exposed to danger. Addressing this crisis demands investment in housing and addiction support to restore stability. Miami's encampments challenge us to prioritize compassion over displacement, ensuring urban growth includes those living in the shadows of the city's gleaming skyline. Broader implications and reflections. The 10 encampments, from the vast tents of Skid Row to the shelters under Miami's overpasses, share common factors: unaffordable housing, inadequate social services, and the devastating spread of fentanyl. Each of these areas stands as a stark representation of the broader homelessness crisis in America, where systemic failures expose individuals to violence, addiction, and hopelessness. These regions are not isolated. Their problems extend beyond their boundaries, impacting entire communities. Deteriorating public safety, overburdened municipal resources, and a decrease in tourism or investment are tangible effects highlighting the urgency of addressing this crisis. The fentanyl epidemic in particular has magnified the risks. Its low-cost and high-potency fuel addiction in areas like Kensington and Tenderloin, transforming fragile encampments into survival battlegrounds. Overdose deaths, drug-related crime, and discarded needles escalate the disorder, making these spaces dangerous for both the homeless and residents alike. The question remains, what will it take to break this cycle of suffering? Solutions like Housing First, which prioritizes permanent housing, offer hope, but require significant funding. Addiction treatment, especially for fentanyl, calls for accessible detox services and harm reduction initiatives such as supervised injection sites, though these are met with political resistance. Mental health care is just as vital, as untreated conditions often drive individuals to the streets. However, expanding these services faces economic constraints and community opposition, with many resisting shelters or treatment centers in their neighborhoods. The continued existence of these encampments is a sobering reminder for action. A society's true values are reflected in how it cares for its most vulnerable. To move forward, we must invest in affordable housing, expand addiction and mental health support, and tackle the fentanyl crisis head-on. These areas represent more than just places of despair. They are calls for change, urging us to reassess our priorities and respond with compassion to restore lives and communities. Conclusion. The 10 encampments discussed here are not merely dangerous. They are manifestations of a deeper issue within America's social structure. From the fentanyl-stricken streets of Kensington to the tent-filled sidewalks of Skid Row, these areas highlight a failure to meet basic human needs, including shelter, safety, and hope. Tackling homelessness in America requires more than short-term solutions. It calls for a commitment to long-term systemic change, affordable housing, comprehensive addiction treatment, and mental health services. As viewers, you are encouraged to see these places not as remote issues, but as shared responsibilities. Get involved with local efforts, advocate for policy changes, and understand that every tent represents a personal story. Only through collective effort can we begin to mend these deep-rooted wounds.